What is up, guys? Welcome to another video. Another video means another dopamine high, because I had to buy something to feel something, and I'm back at it from another hiatus. These hiatuses are starting to become more consistent than my uploads, which I do apologize for. But today we have another review at hand, and the review in question is NECA's Armored Assassin from The Predator. This is a big chunky boy with a lot of stuff to go over. But before you do that, if you do want to pick this figure up yourself, you can get him at Target for $46.99, and there's actually a link to the Target website this time, and then you can also get them off of the Big Bad Toy Store for $49.99, and then a whopping $84.99 off of Amazon. These were the three cheapest prices I could find him for from a retailer. After that, you're gonna have to get him somewhere a hell of a lot more expensive, and then you might get lucky off of eBay. eBay prices are never, guaranteed. They always vary, so do what you will with any other options outside of these three. But like I said, these were the three cheapest options I could find for y'all, so hopefully y'all can get lucky and find them on Target, or you're willing to spend the extra couple bucks on the Big Bad Toy Store. And I pray for anyone who has to resort to Amazon or elsewhere. But with all that said, a little background information on the Armored Assassin. This is the antagonist of the Predator movie, the one that came out, I want to say, I don't even know when, I'll put it in post, but basically he's the antagonist. He's a genetically modified predator that towers over all other predators that we've seen in previous films and even in Prey, and he is sent to Earth to catch the fugitive predator, to stop him from trying to help humanity prepare for the impending predator invasion. And that's pretty much all we know. Not too much more is explored about him on the Xenopedia page, but if you do want to read up on him without seeing the movie, you can go to the Xenopedia link I do put in the description of all my Predator videos for y'all who love lore about the Predator universe as much as I do. And with all that said, let's get into the review. So when it comes to the packaging here, we have the front with the title of our figure, some artwork of him fighting the fugitive, the Predator logo on the side. We have more titles and whatnot. The back, we have a brief description of the Armored Assassin, pretty much what he does in the movie, and then a bunch of shots of the figure and just what's included mentioned. On the side, we have more artwork of the figure. Then opening it up, we obviously have the figure itself with everything included, and it looks like it is all there, so that is nice to see. And then we have a nice big photo of the Armored Assassin. So with all that said, let's open up this box and get into the review. So starting off with articulation, we can get a 360-degree rotation out of his head, which is really nice to see. And then we can actually bring his head up a lot more than the average Predator figure. That range of motion is really nice to see on this figure. And then you can have him tilt his head side to side a decent amount as well, and then we can get that spherical range of motion in his head. So very pleased with the range of motion we have in his head. And then getting into the arms, you can rotate his arms 360 degrees, which is always nice to see. And then you can bring up his arms. You kind of have to move his shoulder or his armor plating on his shoulders to get that range of motion, and the same applies for opening up his arms. You just kind of have to adjust as you move him. So despite that range of motion is there nonetheless for bringing up or opening up his arms. You just gotta make some adjustments as you go along. When it comes to the elbows, we can get a nice big elbow bend out of him and bring up his forearm a decent amount. You can't quite get him to do a shoulder tap, but it's about 95% of one, so very decent range of motion in the elbows nonetheless. And then you can rotate his elbows 360 degrees and the forearm attached to that, so that range of motion is there. And then you can rotate his hand 360 degrees and bend the wrist however you please, so very nice to see that as well. So very happy overall with his arm range of motion and articulation. And then when it comes to the torso, you can rotate his torso 360 degrees. And then, of course, you can rotate his upper half as well separately from his stomach if you wanted to do that. So that range of motion is still there. And then you can have him lean back and forth. By no means is he doing a crunch, but that range of motion is still there. And, of course, you can get that spherical range of motion as well. So overall, very happy with his torso articulation. Pretty standard for most Predator figures. And when it comes to the leg articulation, please be very careful, because right now you're hearing me talking and some lo-fi in the background, but what you are not hearing is ooh. But at least you can kind of get a split out of them. But, after that, you can rotate his leg 360 degrees, but please be very, very careful. As you can see here, I'm kind of struggling to get him to do it, but he can. So just, you know, there's a lot of cracking going on. I'm not damaging the toy, it's just very stiff. So yeah, just be very, very careful. At first I thought the loincloth was stopping this one leg, but no, it's just I wasn't pushing hard enough, and then as you see, I can get that rotation. So yeah, please don't break your toys. This is a $50 figure minimum, so yeah, be very careful. Don't be like me and test my luck. And then when it comes to the knees, they are also very stiff. They're double jointed just like the elbows, and you know, you can get him to bring his, you know, lower leg up, and you can, I want to say, yeah, you can get a pretty much a butt kick, a lower back kick with how long his legs are. But you know, very nice range of motion in the knees. But you know, this is me testing my luck with this figure, and I got very lucky and didn't break anything. But yeah, please be very careful. And then when we go down to the feet, we have these joints here. I'm not extremely smart, so I don't know what this part would be called, but you can get a nice bend and 360-degree rotation out of it. And then with his feet, they're not like normal Predator feet. You can't rotate them 360 degrees and bend however you please. You can just kind of, you know, rotate them, pivot them, and swivel them a decent amount for different poses and balancing, which isn't that great on this figure, spoiler alert. But yeah, overall, very happy with the range of motion articulation on this figure. I don't really have any complaints about anything, really, at least in this field of things. And then getting into accessories, starting off with swappable parts, and the obvious one that comes with most Predators is the swappable head. And he has no biomask, so they gave us a head with his mandibles wide open, and I think that is, you know, it's a good substitute. I'm not upset by this at all. And obviously he looks mean, he looks like he's screaming in anger or pain, or both, you never know. And then obviously the swap out the heads, you just pull it off and pop the other one back on. So I think it was very cool that they gave us a second head nonetheless. And for the other swappable bits, it is obviously the hands. We have 4 hands included, 2 closed fists, and then 2 open hands. And then getting into weaponry, starting off with his wrist blade that he can also, you know, shoot. And this is a just giant wrist blade. It only comes with one, because if your blade is this big, I think you only need one instead of 2 small ones. And you just pop it onto his wrist or his gauntlet through the slit that is on top, and it fits in nice and snug. It doesn't feel like it's going anywhere anytime soon, and it's easy to take off, so you're not gonna risk compromising it or anything like that. So I think they did a great job with this. And then finally we have his plasma caster, which is this little thing right here, and obviously it's not too complicated. I think they did a good job with the visual presentation, and it has some articulation in it to move back and forth, to deploy and go back into a neutral state. And you would put it on him by plugging it into the peg hole on his gauntlet, and it just kind of sits there like that. So you can have it look like it's being ready to be fired, and then you can have it kind of go down into a more neutral state. And I think they did a good job with this accessory overall, because after that, the only thing I'd really add is a blast effect, which is unfortunately not included, but hey, that's not the end of the world. So with articulation and accessories now out of the way, we can discuss the visual presentation of this figure. And because it is a NECA figure, and if you are a recurring viewer, you know how I feel about NECA figures, and that is that NECA does a phenomenal job at making sure all their figures look really good, and that is the case with this figure. Now this Predator figure is different when comparing it to the vast, you know, portfolio that NECA has with Predator figures, not just in his size, but how he dresses, or, you know, the lack of dressing that he has. The only things that he is wearing is a loincloth and his gauntlets. After that, he doesn't really wear much, because his skin is quite literally the armor. So NECA really went the extra mile to show that his skin is, you know, thick. It looks tough. It looks like you're not going to tear through it easily. And, you know, by having bumps riddled all across it, him having, you know, veins popping out from his muscles, and then, you know, his skin looking stretched because he's that shredded and ripped that he has like 0% body fat. So I think they did a really good job at that, at least when it comes to the sculpting. And even when you look at his head, you can see the wrinkles and all the fleshy bits around his mouth to make his mouth, you know, look like a mouth and be fleshy and organic looking. So I think they did a really good job with that. And then when it comes to the paint, obviously they do a really good job when it comes to their paint jobs as well. Obviously they got all of his pigmentation right. They got, you know, his pattern, you know, blending and contrasting and working with itself. And then obviously with the mouth, there's all those different colors going on. So I think they did a really good job overall with the sculpt and paint on this figure, and I'm not gonna, beat a dead horse. Y'all get the point. I really like how they did this figure justice. And before we get into some thought and discussion, let's put this boy into scale, seeing that he is extra thick. And starting off, we have the Armored Assassin making the Fugitive Predator look very small. Then we have Big Chap. Jazz wears Halo the Spartan Collection Halo Infinite Master Chief. Hasbro Star Wars The Black Series 2 12th Clone Trooper. And finally, we have McFarlane's The Doomslayer. So here we are at the turntable segment of the video. This is pretty much where I go over what I like, dislike, pros, cons, strengths, weaknesses, give my general thoughts and opinions about the figure, give you all something to bounce off of and go down into the comment section and, get a discussion rolling. And if any of you do, I most likely will reply to your comments because I like talking about this stuff, obviously. So with all that said, let's get into the sour stuff first to get that, sour taste out of the way and go over the cons, weaknesses, dislikes, whatever you want to call it. And honestly, there's only one issue I have with this figure, and that is the lack of balance or the lack of support of his own weight. He's a very chonky, top-heavy figure, and his feet are thin and small, so he doesn't really support his weight that well, and he fell over a lot, so much so that NECA stands, normal NECA, the disc ones, they do not support his weight. Even if you have one stand on each foot, he will keep falling over. So in the middle of recording this video, I snapped and I went out to Target and I bought one of those dynamic stands that NECA sells to support his weight and to keep him standing up. And as you've watched this video and as you see in this turntable segment, you can see me using the dynamic stand to keep him standing. So yeah, that is the only issue, is that it is such a chore to keep him standing up if you do not have a dynamic stand. You could also use putty and just put that on the bottom of his feet. That could probably help. Realistically, when I display him, he's going to be leaning against the wall because he's the tallest figure, so obviously he has to be in the back. So there's that going for me. But if you don't have that luxury of something for him to lean on, a dynamic stand or some putty is definitely going to be your ally on displaying him. And then when it comes to the likes, pros, strengths of this figure feels really good. He has a nice range of motion, good articulation. I know there's the stiffness in his legs, but with time that will loosen up and not be as stiff as they are when the figure comes packaged. Or you can be one of those people that modify figures and fix that right away. Up to you. But I am very happy with this figure's feel, no issues with articulation whatsoever. And then when it comes to the visual presentation, this figure looks really good, as is the standard for most NECA figures. You get a really good looking figure for what you pay for, so I can't preach that enough. I have a visual presentation segment of the videos just to rant about that. And then things that I would, to be desired, I guess, things I would add or change or adjust. I would include a weighted stand, a stand just for this figure that has some weight to it, or I would make his feet heavier, or put some heavier material in the base of his legs to give him more support for balancing. And then if just to throw it in there, I'd probably add a blast effect for the plasma caster just to add more value to this figure, because a lot of Predators do come with blast effects for their plasma casters. I know some don't, but for a figure that doesn't really come with that many accessories, I feel like it would be nice to just to have that extra thing thrown in there. So with all that said, my final verdict on this figure is that this is a well-rounded figure. If you can get past the fucking balancing issue, if you can, have a dynamic stand, or you have, putty or something to hold him down, I think that this is a really solid figure. I mean, his articulation, his range of motion is really good. You can have him do a bunch of poses and stuff. When it comes to the visual presentation, obviously with it being a NECA figure, it looks really good. They did a really good job at nailing and recreating this character. He comes with a handful of goodies. He doesn't come with as many accessories as most Predator figures do, but granted, in the movie he didn't come with that many gadgets to begin with besides his ship and his dogs. I don't really think they could include those in any way. So yeah, no, I think he came with all the gadgets that we saw in the movie, at least to my knowledge. So I do think, yeah, this is a pretty good figure for the most part. Just the balancing thing is a really big issue. And if you do have this figure, please tell me, do you like or dislike this figure? Go down in the comment section and let's get a conversation started. And with all that said, I really do hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, a like and a subscription would be appreciated. You don't have to comment because I know it's a lot of effort to move those fingers. Unless you want to talk about something I said in the video, then you're more than welcome to. I like talking about this stuff. And then, of course, don't worry about the bell. We both know that shit is broken. And if you want to see more content like this, there's plenty of it up on the channel. I've done a bunch of Predator videos already. I've done Alien stuff as well, and I review Star Wars and Halo stuff on top of that. So, and if any of that interests you, you're more than welcome to go check that out. And with all that said, I hope you have a wonderful day, and please stay hydrated. It's important.